April showers bring May flowers, though this year maybe it's the May showers bringing us our June flowers. Either way, my garden seems to disagree with this sentiment. In my circle this year, there has been an ever-growing amount of indecisiveness and disagreement about when to move our seedlings outside, when to start gardening in earnest. Some of my friends, either brave or maybe reckless, depending on who you ask, started planting their gardens back in March. Some of us wait for Memorial Day weekend, and others still wait for June. This debate on when it will be warm enough, when it will be safe enough to start moving our seedlings outside and grow something new feels so familiar each year, and yet each year it's still a little bit different. Now, I'm pretty new to gardening beyond maybe a handful of potted plants. My found family and I moved into a new home recently, and we've been met with many challenges. And we've had to learn and experiment more than we would have expected. In looking for guidance on what to grow or how to care for our yard, the first place we turned to was our parents and our families. Many of my earliest memories are in my mom's garden, the same one she still tends today. When I was about 4 or maybe 5 years old, I remember watching with intense curiosity as she meticulously prepared a raised bed to hold that year's batch of annual flowers, carefully separating out each root ball before placing them in the earth and covering them with soil. This work was rarely done alone and was almost done with family or friends or sometimes even the occasional neighbor offering a helping hand. Over the years, her garden grew and it changed. Beds were moved, different varieties of plants came and went. Fruit and vegetables began to take over a good portion of the backyard underneath the ash, aspen, and crabapple trees. Now, as much as I'm sure she'd have you believe otherwise, my mom wasn't always such a prolific gardener. We all start somewhere. She learned to garden from my grandmother, who has always been surrounded by more plants than you can count, running up the walls, hanging from the ceiling, behind every nook and corner. And just like me, and my mother before me, my grandmother had to learn this from somewhere, and for her, that was her grandparents on a farm in Indiana. Each of us learned from the generations before us, and this knowledge has been passed down for hundreds, if not thousands of years. This fountain of knowledge pours into each of us, and before we in turn share it with another, we adapt it. Growing a garden in suburban Colorado Springs requires a much different approach, after all, than tending a farm in rural Indiana or out on the coast of California. Our circumstances change how we see and how we contribute to this tradition and all other traditions that we are a part of. And I see Unitarian Universalism no differently. We are the inheritors of a tradition that started in earnest in the 18th century, but our roots go deeper still, all the way to the Nicene Creed. Some of the first Unitarian and Universalist churches were founded in the wake of the American Revolution. Seminal preachers like Hosea Ballou renounced the prevailing Calvinist doctrine of the era, rooted in sin and atonement. Ballou brought us to the understanding that anyone can make a home of the divine and that we are not doomed from the start. Inspired by a liberal father and a conflict with his first congregation, Ralph Waldo Emerson would go on to challenge the notion of God and religion that he had been born into, giving us his understanding of the oversoul and reminding us of the importance of leading a life in line with our moral values. Each of these early theologians was a gardener. They both took one look at the proverbial soil of our collective UU garden bed and envisioned what could grow there. They kept an eye open for weeds that might need pulling or what pests might need removal. Inspired by their experiences and their understanding, they did the scary thing. They rebelled. They spoke out, and they worked to make those possibilities a reality regardless of what the cost might be. And this work continues with us today. Who knew that a handful of academic, white, cis male perspectives were never going to be inclusive enough to build an entire beloved community? Challenged by systemic and overt oppressions, including racism, homophobia, transphobia, sexism, xenophobia, and countless others, we are called by our shared values to grow a new world. Each generation before us has sown the seeds of our movement today, and it's up to us now to sow the seeds of resistance that will empower the next generation to continue our work. This requires us not to only be resistant, but to be sustainable and inclusive as well. A wonderful colleague of mine at Starr King compared the work of early UU theologians to a flower garden. It's beautiful and it serves a purpose. It attracts pollinators and provides some shelter, but it doesn't sustain us against the day's challenges, at least not on its own. The kind of theology that my colleague was thirsting for was that of a vegetable garden, providing sustenance, shelter, and security. But even the most abundant patch of fruit and vegetable plants can be made more bountiful through adding in decorative plants, flowering plants, fruit trees, and a diverse ecosystem of support. As Robin Wall Kimmerer so wisely put it, all flourishing is mutual. So now, here we stand in an unusually warm spring, watering can in hand. What will we plant together? Will we focus on perennial parts of our philosophy? Or will we focus on new options, planting new annuals maybe? How will we grow in this season? Many years ago, while helping my mom to lay out her new vegetable garden, we planted marigolds. Marigolds are hardy flowers, and they're naturally pest repellent. Rather than spraying harsh chemicals to keep bugs away, there was hope that these flowers, combined with meticulous weeding and pruning, could help her garden to flourish. Now, marigolds are self-seeding plants. They sustain themselves. Each winter, as the frost finally creeps into their roots, our marigolds die off, leaving only their seeds behind. Throughout this cold of winter, these seeds scatter in the breeze, or sometimes with the help of birds or other wildlife. This turns every spring into a scavenger hunt. It's always a surprise and a delight to see where these flowers might pop up. One year they might crop up along a fence line, and another between the cracks and the railroad ties that separate different plots in her garden. Over time, these flowers began to creep outside of the artificial boundaries that we had imposed on them. Nature, it seems, just didn't get the memo that our fence was just as much there to keep things in as it was to keep them out. And as a result, there are now marigolds popping up in the creek bed behind my mom's house. They've worked their way into neighbors' yards, and they've taken up residence along a nearby trail, greeting passerby with their fiery orange, red, and yellow petals. These marigolds, growing up through concrete in unwelcome places, are so inspirational for me. Unperturbed by the challenges that they face, they find their own way to thrive in their own place. How long will patches of marigolds rise from the earth along Cottonwood Creek because of the love and effort my mom put into watering them those first few years? How many people will take joy in finding them? Along this same creek bed lies a trail that has grown to mean so much to me. Now a paved and straightforward open space, it was once home to narrow dirt tracks that seemed to shift each time you looked at them. The trees and marshy, muddy ditches hiding all manner of surprises for us to find. About a half mile down these twisting trails, assuming you didn't become lost first, you could find a clearing with over a dozen garden beds, each overflowing with all manner of flowers, surrounded by teeming clouds of pollinators. These planters were created out of an act of resistance. One of our neighbors, too generous to keep the beauty of her garden confined to her property alone, had spent a great deal of time and resources creating an oasis that proved irresistible to passersby and all manner of wildlife. Often, I would ride my bike down to this patch of Eden, and I'd watch intensely as squirrels and strangers alike would pause in this numinous space, finding a brief shelter from the difficulties that unfolded around us. Our pursuit for liberation and transformative justice spreads far beyond whatever boundaries might be imposed on it. We can never know all of the places or the people that our work will reach. Just like my mom's marigolds or my neighbor's public garden, if we put enough love and compassion and dedication into our work, it is sure to provide not just for us, but for our communities too, both where we planned to make an impact and where we didn't. In writing this reflection for today, I was continually moved by our mission statement, but particularly those first 3 words, rooted in love. Not only is our mission rooted in love, but so too are our values. If these values and our mission are what are growing in our proverbial UU garden bed today, then what seeds do we want to plant for the future? Where will we grow next? What challenges will we overcome together? During our centering today, I asked you to think of a small moment of joy from the last few weeks. It might be a kind moment with a stranger, or the warmth of blue and orange rays at each sunrise, or the sound of a friend's laughter. Whatever that moment is, I'd invite you to think of it now. Just like the marigolds in our garden, can you imagine what it would be like to plant this moment of joy somewhere in your soul? What about in your family or in your community? It's easy to lose sight of love in a world that is so quick to strike it down or to ignore its value. Holding on to these small moments of joy is a reminder of the love that we root ourselves in. Building a muscular, sustainable love that holds us together and connects us as a community in the face of hardship is no easy task. But I have good news. It isn't something that happens all at once. It doesn't even take something big. Each time we notice a small moment of joy, and especially when we share it with one another, we are pulled together and made just a little bit more resilient. In a world so motivated by hate, recognizing joy is and always will be an act of resistance.